Hello and welcome to the Arsenal's the Gooner talk. And also the Arsenals have managed to mess up. That's the first time I think I've ever messed up the intro. I must be intimidated by my guests. But hello and welcome to the Gooner talk. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. I'm joined this morning by Clive from the Arsenal Vision podcast. How you doing, Clive? You good? You well?
I am. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Why do you always pull? I noticed this when you do the vision as well. It's like Elliot's like you can follow Clive, blah 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 blah, and then it's like a pause, and then you're like, hello.
You know why?
Go
Just
on.
making sure you're listening, right?
Yeah.
So it's very important. Every word matters. Messaging, delivery of messaging is very important. Very important,
Mm.
as you know, right? As you know. When you get it wrong, you
What?
have a listenership who will tell you.
I know they do. It's like this morning where I said the 10-yard box.
Yeah, yeah.
I was asking, and the thing is, like, I was talking like hypothetically, like in that area, not necessarily that there's a line of the 10-yard box, and everyone in the chat box is going, it's called the 80. And then I said, I meant the 16-yard, and I realized, oh, wait, hold on, it's the 18-yard box. And obviously,
Yeah,
they're all on me then as well. So,
absolutely. Put the spade away, mate. It's an 18-yard box. What's wrong with you? Stop digging a hole for yourself.
I know. I just don't like being pulled up on things, but you'll do that to me plenty. What's been your biggest kind of like hold your hands up moment this season? Like, oh wow, I was wrong about that. You know, I've learned something, if you know what I mean. Or have you had one so far this season?
Um, and every time Eddie scores a hat trick, I sort of have to be
Yeah.
a bit humble. But to be fair, my position with him has not say changed, but I said I literally said this today or yesterday to Elliot. This is my thing with Eddie now. I kept misreading him, or there's some players I struggle to see. Right? Smith Rowe's another. Just don't see him clearly. Some people have him
Mm,
on a pedestal. I don't. I think, yeah, good player. But then you have to accept that you don't see every player in the same way. And so when I with Eddie, I've got some technical issues with him. But you know what? I think to myself, why am I getting aerated about one of our players? What is it?
mm,
So for me, then, what I tend to do is look at the inputs to that discussion in my own head. I say, well, Eddie, why are we wish casting Eddie to be our main centre forward? When obviously we should be looking at Eddie and the role by which he plays within our squad.
yeah.
If you judge Eddie on the role in the squad and start to compare him to other strikers in the league that perform a similar role, like Martial or Callum Wilson or the
Alvarez.
guy at Villa, Alvarez potentially, the guy at Villa,
Mm,
Duran, his name is, I think,
yes. Yeah.
who's second behind. And you start to look around the league and you start to compare him to those guys. Richarlison potentially behind Son. I'm
Wilson.
trying to. Well, yeah, I mentioned Callum Wilson already, right?
Yeah.
So basically, when you
See, I
start to
wasn't listening.
compare him, he wasn't listening. It happens all the time, but your listeners are going to tell you he wasn't listening. Listen to Clive Tom, they're going to say. Right? But when you start to compare him to them, then we have a discussion. Then we can see why Arteta rates him. Because then you compare, well, actually, the role in the squad that he plays, given the fact that our main centre forward doesn't take much for him to twist the sock and be out for a month. Eddie's role is incredibly valuable. So why wouldn't you pay him as such?
Mm,
Why wouldn't you judge him as such? So if I said that to you now, then my view on Eddie changes because I'm not expecting him to be starting every single week for Arsenal and be in the European Cup final team. Do you see what I mean? I'm expecting him
mm,
to be part of a group. And that's what you've got to think about now. The roles in a group and the acceptance of these players to accept their role and how they perform it. And when you look at him like that, he is top class because he
yeah.
comes in, does the best job he possibly can, not always brilliantly,
Mm,
always fit, more often than not, apart from when he did that
sure.
stupid tackle last season and he got his ankle
Yeah.
twisted, right? And that was frustrating. I literally watched him do that. He was just frustrated with himself. And he's here. And so I I like that. And then I think to myself, do we want to go out on the market and buy a centre forward for 50, 60
Mm,
million quid? I'm thinking, well, you know what? He best be good. He best be really good. There best be a really big gap. And maybe we look at a wing forward, shall we say, who can
yeah.
play central and can play wide. And you cover two parts of the pitch. And that could be the next signing rather than trying to sell Eddie on, right? So,
Mhm,
but yeah, if
mhm,
he misses a couple of open goals against West Ham in the week, then we've got a different discussion. And that's how transient the game is. And so
mm.
that's where my view has slightly changed. That makes sense.
See, often when I talk to you, Clive, and you're talking, and I am listening half the time, I'm often, when I'm not listening, trying to think of what the next question is going to be. And when I was thinking up the next question, it was what therefore happens in regards to the market. And obviously, you answered it during that monologue. But in a way, I
This
want
is
to
what
press.
I do.
I know it's what you do, but I want to press on it a bit because some people would say that, he's a player that you could upgrade on. And I agree with you. If you're going to upgrade on him, you're going to have to find someone bloody good to be able to do that. And you've also got to find somebody that's then therefore going to be in the knowledge that they're going up against Gabriel Jesus. Do you want to be able to, do you want to come into a team knowing you're not going to be the starting striker? Because in my mind, if you're going to find a forward, there's two options, and you answered again one of them, which is the versatile Cody Gakpo type forwards that can play in a wide area. Yeah, would have been the one. Or you find a player that is better than Jesus, and then Jesus becomes the Nketiah, if you like, and the second option with the new striker you bring in. But I don't think there's too many out there. I guess there's a third route, which is you find somebody young that you think's got a bigger ceiling than your current operators. We talk, and you and me love a YouTube compilation of forwards, whether it's a Santiago Jimenez or whether it's a Benjamin Sesko or whether it's a Victor Boniface, one of these guys, some of the hottest prospects on the continent at the moment. Which pathway do you think? You mentioned obviously the wide forward that can play through the middle as well. Do you think that's the likeliest pathway?
I did hear you say something today about a young player, and I thought, you know what, that is the way forward. There's a guy at Lons, is it El Wahi, the guy that scored against us?
Wahi, yeah.
El Wahi, sorry, you forget that name wrong. And I looked at him and I thought, yeah, you're quite good. You're quite good. 3 or 4 of these names we just mentioned, apart from Sesko, I didn't really know. I didn't really know like 6 weeks ago. I've been studying them, so I see them now and I know them. And I do think that's probably the way to go forward, because it's all dependent on our schedule next year. Presumably we're going to be in Champions League, which is what you want. It's more Champions League games. So we need another forward in this group. Simple as that. It needs to happen. The squad is not going to be big enough to manage the games we're going to have to play. And so for me, it is a younger player that can do that. But then someone I can almost hear people shouting, well, if we are going to play that games in Champions League, just get Ivan Toney and stick him up front. And you can see that too. Do you know what I mean? And I will say that I listen to people, Arsenal players, ex-players, and they talk about Ivan Toney in a way like this is, I'll say gonna happen, but could happen. You know, there's a positive feeling, and we all know the ex-players that are out there regularly in the interwebs. And so if you listen to them carefully, you listen to even ex-players at other clubs, they talk about this like it's something that's really possible. Do I like it? Yeah. Do I like it? I'm 50-50 on it, if I'm honest with you. I'm 50-50.
For the record, listeners, Clive said before the show he didn't want to go down the Ivan Toney pathway, and I didn't bring it up. Just putting that out there.
I'm 50-50 on it, and there's things I look for in a player: how they move across the grass, their versatility, what they can do in different parts of the pitch. And I don't want my one-dimensional players in the team.
Yeah,
because when that dimension doesn't suit them, they have to sit on the sidelines. The people that can move, people can control the ball, people can do things that are really positive and facilitate other people in our team. Great. If they have got a superpower, make it be so super that they become the system. I'm not sure Ivan Toney becomes the system. Right. So I love my basketball. When LeBron James plays, he is the system. Everything revolves around him. Ivan Toney is the system for Brentford. Do we want that for Arsenal? I'm not sure.
I think if Arsenal want to go out and sign somebody, be it January or in the summer, there's something that exists that only really for me got touched upon in the pre-Sheffield United press conference for the first time properly referenced. And that's the 25-man squad. Because people are talking to me in chat box and saying, I want to sign this guy in January. I want to sign this guy in January. In the summer, I want to sign this guy. And I'm like, okay, cool. But where are you going to put them? Because at the moment, Arsenal have 25 players, senior players. We're not talking about like youngsters that are under 18 or 19, 20, so they don't count. I'm talking about 25 senior players are at Arsenal now. And obviously Cedric is one of those players you look at and say he's going to move on. He's or at the minimum you don't have to register Cedric, so that's one spot. Beyond that, we have 24 players who either are, like in the case of Jorginho and El Neni, at least here until the end of the season when their contracts expire. And we could still even make a decision on Jorginho to keep him for another year if we wanted. And then there's the opportunity to move players on. And there isn't too many I look at and go, well, they're on the way out. They're going to be sold. The only one I really see at the moment is potentially Thomas Partey, because depending on his fitness situation, because he keeps getting injured and he can't stay fit and he can't be available. And that might push Arteta to a position where he thinks that, well, maybe we should accept a bid from Saudi Arabia or Italy and then replace him. But again, you've just renewed Nketiah. You've just renewed Reece Nelson. And you might make some money off those players, but obviously you're going to have to find a way in selling them. Smith Rowe is a big question mark as well. We've got Yuri and Timber to come back and be part of the squad as well. So you're not going to sign a defender knowing he's coming back, unless you find the perfect option. But what do you make of that concept, and especially what Arteta was talking about in his presser, where he said we need a bigger squad, we need and not more signings. We need 30. 35 players to be in a squad in the Premier League today.
Yeah, and I think that this conversation is ongoing, and I think that will lead to salary caps potentially as well. I mean, the way we're pushing players at the moment is just ridiculous. It's not going to get any better. You know, the World Club Championship is expanding to like 30 teams or something like that.
Yeah, 32, 36 or whatever.
We got the Swiss Champions League model comes in next year, where there's an extra few more games in there.
Yeah.
So this is only going one direction, right? And the League Cup still has a 2-leg semi-final. I mean, crikey, we're just kidding ourselves here. And so I do think potentially they might have to up the squad sizes. If you think back to Arsenal squad now, there's a few low-hanging fruit, shall we say? We've got Cedric, potentially El Neni, potentially Jorginho at the end of the year. 1 second. Cedric is somebody that's going to be on their way. Basically, we have a situation where Timber comes back in, takes that slot. Cedric may have gone if Timber was still here. And so we have this situation where potentially we have 7 people in our back line, which is 1 short where we need to be, according to Arteta again at the press conference. Then we have a situation in January where Tom Yasu will be going away, not just for 20 minutes, but for 3 weeks plus. Right, potentially with the Asia Cup. Thomas Partey, someone else who can drop into that back line if he was fit, will also be away at the same time. So to me, with all these exciting things about Ivan Toney and all the rest of it, we should be looking at a defender, because the defender de-risks the issues that we saw at the end of last season with Saliba's injury towards the end of the season. So keep your good player young. Don't want him taking the burden every single week. So potentially right now we're sitting here and we need 1 more defender urgently. We may have to bring somebody forward, So it could see a situation where one of the attacking mids may go away on loan to create room in the squad for somebody. And what I mean attacking mids, I'm talking Nelson, Smith Rowe, Vieira. That's what I'm really talking about. Maybe one of those 3, mainly because maybe not all 3 of them will get all the minutes that they need. So that's a potential move, right? So I think you'd have to de-risk our defensive element to our team, given the way that we're playing, given how crucial defenders are. I mean, look at the weekend, 120-odd pass Saliba just ran the game. These players are no longer people that head it and kick it like I used to play. They are playmakers. They are top passers. And we judge them on what they do on the ball, what they do off the ball as well. So, and where we can play. And if you're wondering when it's not quite right, think back to last year when we had Rob Holding come into the team. How did you all feel? We all was worried because we realised the way we played was no longer possible with somebody that didn't have the skill sets for Arsenal Football Club. Great lad, great player. Not for very good in Sheffield United's team, but not for Arsenal Football Club on the halfway line, I'm afraid. And that's the difference.
Yeah, and this is what I say. If it's going to be a defender, it has to be the perfect defender, and it has to fit exactly what those requirements are. And it's really difficult. And I think we found the perfect one in the summer, and sadly, he's got injured. Because what Timber offers you is the ability to move Ben White back into a centre-back area if you want to. You can play Tomiyasu centrally if you want to, because he's just like Tommy, so versatile. He's so adept at playing at left, right, and if you wanted to, in a centre-half position if you were desperate, because he played every game for Ajax last season in the middle rather than the fullback areas, which is where he played every pre-season game, with us planning to use him in those roles. And Zinchenko should be worried for his future. You know, Ben White is going to be, I think, under a bit more pressure maybe as well. I think that fullback area is something that is really evolving under the modern day coaches of Pep, who I think initially, you know, as kind of sparked this centre half, what they can do in a fullback area, and now Arteta. I think we lack a Kyle Walker personally type player. I'd love somebody like Kyle Walker who offers you pace and real verve going forwards. There's times, Clive, where I think in games that, you know, where we want to be all tactical and we want our players to invert and we want them to become midfielders. But there's sometimes I really want somebody bursting up that right-hand flank or left-hand flank and overlapping and doing a Trent Alexander-Arnold. I just want a different option. But I'm trying to read this man's facial expressions to see whether that's one that he doesn't like.
No, so I am a fan of big fullbacks, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Big
I know.
fullbacks. Yeah,
Walker's
that's
big.
the phrase. I like Kyle Walker. I like him. I like him. But when we allowed him to, what we did when we played Man City is we allowed Guardiola and Kyle Walker to have space to attack. And what did they do, Tom? They couldn't do anything. They couldn't do it, mate. And very smart from Arteta. I thought he was a genius that day. Very smart. Mate, I'd take Ben White over him as an all-round footballer. I would. And I think Ben White is really developing into a top-class fullback that I no longer want to move. I liked Timber as a left back. I liked him more as a left back. Small sample size, I know, but I liked him more as left back than I did right back. Tomiyasu, mate, fighting for a contract. Arsenal rejected a move for him in the summer for Inter Milan. Glad they did. He's come back super fit. Look how, I mean, you were there the weekend. Players can't hide their feelings, right? We can all spot it. They love that guy, right? They absolutely love him. I'm so pleased. Give the man a pen. Make sure he stays. Now, what if I'm Zinchenko? I'm gonna have a chat with the manager. I'm 25, 26, right? I'm gonna have a chat with the manager and say, look, mate, I don't want to be run past by the Bukayo Sakas of this world for the rest of my career. I need to get myself into the interior of this midfield. You've got 3 30-year-olds about to exit, right? In Party, let's be honest, there's no contract negotiations going on for him, so we know he's going, right? So Jorginho's in his last year option. What would you do? I would move it. And El Neni, I think the time's coming to an end. Arsenal looked after him very, very well post his injury. So you take out 3 30-year-olds. You need to bring somebody into that midfield group. I think Zinchenko can do it with his eyes shut, do exactly what Jorginho does, and do it with more ability, movement on the ball, carrying, pass selection, technique. I would get him in the interior of our team tomorrow. Look at the praise that Bernardo Silva gets for playing inside as a double 6. Same type of player, technical player, just keeps the ball moving. We could definitely do one of them in the interior of our team. It leaves room for a youth player to get promoted, shall we say? And there's one out there that's currently running around at Swansea doing really, really well. Leaves room for one player to get promoted. And then it also leaves room for potential purchase if you want to do that, to make sure that for the big games you're in shape. That's a smart use of squad. For me, that's the way I would go without even thinking about it. I do think at the end of the season, we have 3 Howlanders in Eddie, Smith Rowe, and Nelson. Do we all think 3 of them will start the season next year? I'm not so sure. And by the way, not because they're not good enough. It's because there comes a point when they need to have minutes in their career. So depending how the rest of the season goes, they're going to want to play some football. And so it's very important that they don't let their levels drop. They stay at this elite level. So to do that, you need to play. So there could be a conversation there with 2 of those guys, I reckon. A couple of days after a hat-trick for Eddie, the other, who had a conversation looks a bit obvious at the moment. But football changes in West Ham Wednesday night. Smith Rowe had a good game. None of us are saying this anymore. So it's about keeping your mind open to market opportunities, but open to your squad development and seeing how they go in the next few months.
I think that the squad is, I've obviously been a supporter a lot less than you, not insultingly less, Clive, but a lot less at time than you watching this team. But it is the first time I've really felt emboldened by how much depth there is, and how much quality there is throughout the group, and also at the same time excited to see what more comes through with the likes of Ethan Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly. You touched upon Charlie Patino. But is there a worry for you that having seen somebody like Folarin Balogun, not have a place and was sold, and we made a lot of money for him, and I think we did really well getting the amount of money we did with the add-ons that potentially could also be earned on him, that with what signings we make or promote from within in terms of Zinchenko, as you mentioned, going into midfield, that doors get shut on some very, very talented players and that we let them go? Is there a worry for you that maybe we won't see as much promotion as we have done in recent seasons?
I'm not worried. No, how can I say this? The game has changed. The game has changed. When Smith Rowe jumped into the team, we were not the team we are today. And we were almost waiting for him to get over his hip injury to get into the team. He got into the team around Christmas time against Chelsea, and our life started to change. Right? So him and Saka got together. The club standards and the quality around Smith Rowe now has made it challenging for him. So since then, we've spent money on a number of players, including Trossard, including Vieira, including Havertz. We see Martin Odegaard establish himself as the number 10 on the right-hand side. Smith Rowe was in that position. When Smith Rowe first burst in, we were having a debate, Martinelli or Smith Rowe. Well, that debate's suddenly slowed down a little bit, hasn't it? Martinelli's turned into some amazing athlete and has got his big contract in his back pocket. So that debate is less of a debate, shall we say. And so the standards have changed, the requirements have changed. Yet, we still have these memories of what Smith Rowe does. And that's a classic example of somebody where you have to give them time to allow them to develop themselves back into the squad in the right role for them, define their role within the group in a team that standards have gone through the roof. We're having debates now about substitutes and selections. And the reason why we can have them is because the manager's bought more good players than bad ones. And now we're debating who should start and where they should play. A year or so ago, we were praying that first 11 was healthy and fit. And when we lost a key player in that first 11, our season fell apart. So it's down to what we've done as a club to develop and identify talent to give us the depth. So you, Tom, as a young fan, can say, I've never seen this before. And to be honest, neither have I. The reason why the game that I grew up with didn't have 5 substitutes, didn't have the same impact on the bench. I read something today that our substitutes have scored more goals or been involved in more goal involvements than any other team in the league. And people criticise Arteta for substitutes. I'm thinking, mate, one, he's developed the squad. 2, look at the actual facts. Right? So substitutes analysis, you don't often find me do it. And I'll tell you why, because it's all outcome based. When we do really, really well and we literally have 4 players set up a goal against Man City, we enjoy that. When we draw 2-2 against somebody, right, and we don't quite make substitutions in the right time, we criticise Arteta for game management. Don't get me started, mate. Don't get me started. You'll always get a game wrong. You always will. You turn around, you look behind you, you make the wrong decision. I think there's a game where Vieira came on in one of the games on the right wing. It might have been in Lens. Remember that one? Lens away.
Yeah, Saka came off injured. Vieira came on.
Vieira came on. Vieira's a good player. Really good player. Came on, stunk the place out. People were saying, I don't know if I made that substitution. Well, if he sticks one in the top corner, I bet you would say that's a great substitution. It didn't work out on the day.
Yeah.
It didn't work out on the day. And Trossard started against Fulham. All of us wanted him to see him start. Stunk the place out in the first half. Eddie comes on, that we were happy to see on the bench. And Vieira comes on, and they ripped the game open. It's all about outcome. It's about outcome. And the key thing really is what we're seeing now is having as many players engaged, feeling like they can play. So when they do come in, they look effective. So in the last few weeks, we found Trossard. We're finding Eddie. We found Tomiyasu. We found Kivio at the weekend as a reminder what a good player he can be. And so that only makes us feel more confident about the schedule that's ahead of us and what we're going to see post-January in particular.
Yeah, I think it's a really good point about that. In-game management is something that I always, and I know you listen to my show, so now I know you've been rolling your eyes while you've been listening to me, so that's good.
It's not just you, mate. Elliot's the same.
It's just, for me, it's always been the one thing I looked at Arteta and thought, I adore so much about his philosophy, his ruthlessness, his the project and the way in which we progressed it, his vision of the club and where he wants it to go and how he's delivering that as well. But there's always been that in-game part of his management that I've thought can be better, like decision making. Let me give you an example. This season, for something up to date, I find myself getting incredibly frustrated at times with how long Bukayo Saka is left on the field at times in situations where I think he can be taken off, like Bournemouth, for instance. He came off that game against Bournemouth injured. When we were 3 or 4-0 up. And I'm thinking, when you're 3-0 up at Bournemouth, you can take him off. You could just, and we know that he's getting kicked, and you can rest him and you can manage his minutes better. That's what I mean when I'm critical of his in-game. Am I being too harsh then?
No. There was, I don't know, it might have been Spurs actually, because we sort of ran out of players against Spurs. That's why they got away with it. And I was talking, and Tim sits on that side of the pitch in the second half when we're attacking the North Bank end. And he sits right at the halfway line, and he could see that Saka was injured, and he was going absolutely ballistic. He said he can barely run. He can barely run. So Tim's memory when he walked away from the stadium was that's terrible game management from that day. Now I was at the other end. I couldn't really see that, so I haven't got that memory. I haven't got that same scar in my mind. Do you know what I mean? I just, because let's be honest. Come on, we're all nerds, right? We watch Arsenal all the time. How many games have you not seen Bukayo Saka limp? Should we have that discussion? Most games he gets a kick and he limps at some time. And a lot of the time he's absolutely fine. And he's there available in training next day smiling on our inside training videos. So sometimes it's hard to judge when he's absolutely injured. And given the fact he played 80-odd games in a row, maybe the manager knows more about him and his ability to recover than we do. Because you don't do that unless the right decisions have been taken in between game days and training days, etc. So yeah, and also the right decisions by the player, how he recovers, how he lives his life to allow him to be fit and available for when it really, really counts. So I'm loath to criticize, because one thing we don't have, any of us, is the ability to understand the medical data that the club see. It's highly confidential data. They have all the data. They have all that at their fingertips, and we don't have it. And what we can do on game day, we can see when someone's struggling, when someone's tired. Odegaard's a great example recently. He looked a little bit tired, right? And he took that kick against Kovacic. We've all forgotten that. And suddenly, when it mentions he's been carrying something, we all flick back to the Kovacic kick from behind where he should have got sent off. That maybe explains a few things. He has been taking a few too many shots. Why he's taking shots? You know why he's taking shots? Because our centre forwards had a knee injury. Our left winger had a hamstring injury. And you got a guy with 15 and 10. If I'm the manager, I'm saying to you, mate, take a few shots because we lost a couple of our goal scorers. Take some shots because I know I can trust you to score. Right? So there's always a reason for this stuff. And it's just a matter of having a little think about it and trying to put ourselves in their shoes. But Saka, on occasions, I think there's been opportunities. But I think he gets it more right than wrong. That's my view.
Oh no, without question. I think that there is. It's just when a manager does so well, it becomes much harder to find the things that you want to talk about in terms of their areas of development, which makes it obviously. But
Shall I tell you what I think is? Shall I tell you what I think? Right, this is the area of development for me. And by the way, he's sorting this one out as well, right? So for the last 2 or 3 seasons, we've lost key players. And how we've adjusted to those key players being out, for me, has been incorrect. So I remember when we lost Kieran Tierney the first time, we put Xhaka there. Now knowing a little bit more about inverted fullbacks, I can see what he's trying to do, but Xhaka was the wrong guy to do it with, right? So it's the wrong guy to do it with, and we didn't. I think we had David Luiz playing back then, and Gabriel was on the bench because he didn't know the language. So it's
Pablo Marie maybe as well.
Maybe. So you can see what he's trying to do. It didn't quite work out, but that's just me as a fan disagreeing with a solution. And obviously last year we lost Holding. Some people were saying, different things we could have done. We found Kivior. He probably didn't want to throw him into the big game because he was new. Kivior came in and things settled. They settled down, even though he's the right centre back. Could that have happened sooner? The way that he runs that dressing room and the hierarchy, Rob Holding was next man up. He had to give him a go. He had to. In the first couple of games, he was fine, and then it just started to fade away. And so that adjustment to major trauma, I think, has been a little bit slow on occasions. But I think he's learned. And I think, I don't mean that to sound patronizing. I think he's learning about how he builds his squad and versatility and having the right attributes. And he can't get everything all at once, So now he's got all these tools he can use. And guess what? He's using them. And right now, I look at our team, Tom, I'm telling you, mate, one of my phrases, I'm telling you, mate, I think we can play always. So if you want us to play at the back, we can do that. Right to the penalty box, we can do that. If you want a mid-blocker team like I did against Man City, we can do that. If you want to go aggressive like you did against Spurs and really go on top of them, we can do that too. Right? If you want to go long against us, we can run with you. Right? And we can now win second balls because we got the Hoover in the middle of midfield, Declan Rice. So don't go long because we'll win that. Sleeper can now win everything in the air. We got goalkeepers that can press up and play high. We've literally added all of the tool sets. And by the way, we should have gone over the press at Chelsea sooner, but we now have a 6'4" guy we can stick up there to go over the press to that we didn't have last season. So we've added all of these things into our thought process, which probably makes us more critical because now we can see the options. Oh, we should do this. We should do that. We didn't have these options last year, but now we've got them. We're going to be critical. So where it's going to manifest itself with you, Tom, is people are going to say the game management is wrong. The reason why they're going to say that, and if they're quite in their right to say that, is because of the optionality we have within the squad. And I think I just would balance it out and say the reason why we have the optionality in the squad is for what we've done over the last couple of years to make Arsenal Football Club really attractive for players to come and play for. And that's really important.
No, flip the script. Yeah, I think it's great. The more options, more choice, more opportunities to have had a different route to the solution for fans to try and point out, for sure. I love the point earlier on about Ødegaard as well, and like where he was at about his shooting, because one of the criticisms of Ødegaard I've seen people levy at him this season is that he doesn't take games by the scruff of the neck enough, or he's not like. And I sit there and I'm like, well, I see Ødegaard as like a catalyst for this team. I see him as an elevator. I see him as something as that when Arsenal are playing well, typically Ødegaard's playing well. And maybe when Arsenal don't have the best performances, Ødegaard's maybe not one of the better players in it. And that shows his importance. But also, if you want him to take games to the scruff of the neck, don't complain that he's taking these shots, because that is him trying to take the game in some ways. That is him trying to take the ownership and lead this team and, make something happen. So you can never win in football sometimes. And us supporters sometimes find ways to create those situations.
You can't win. I think we've had a guy shooting. It's not for me that he's taking shots. It's always shot selection, shot technique, right? So are you using the right technique? Are you off balance on your wrong foot, taking a shot from 25 yards out? Maybe have a little think about it, show a bit of composure and patience. But I never worry. The intention to shoot is what we should be encouraging. We should be encouraging that intention to shoot. If you feel set and ready to go, you feel positive, let it go. Don't hold back. Let it go. Look at the goal that Eddie scored the weekend. Gee whiz. That was quality. Beautiful. Absolute quality. We should be encouraging that. So when that goes in, we all stand up, clap, and go to the pub. It's like, and then when it doesn't go in, we're shooting too much. And so we can't have it all ways, right? For me, it's selection, showing the right composure, having the right technique. Focus on that, and the output will take care of itself. You know, it really will. It really will. And I think I want Odegaard to shoot. You know why? Because I think he's got the best technique in our club. And if he gets it right, you know, like he did at Newcastle and Spurs last year, we have good days, right? So, and PSV this year, is his shot he took against PSV? Remember the home game in the European game? Mate, that was in from the moment you took it out of his feet. That was in, you know, and that was only about 5 weeks ago. It'll come back. He'll come back.
Recency bias. So we always remember what's most happened. We forget so quickly. You know, we forget things so quick.
Oh, it's fantastic, mate. Football. Don't we love it? We absolutely love it.
Clive, it's always an absolute pleasure to speak with you. And it is once again. Tell people where they can find you and what you're going to be up to.
Well, what do? I just talk football on Arsenal Vision a little bit and a few other places. And yeah, that's it.
There you
go.
know
where to find me.
At Clive PAFC on Twitter.
I forget about that.
On X, I should say, not Twitter these days. At Clive PAFC. Thank you once again to Clive. If you've got any thoughts on anything that we've discussed in today's show, leave them down in the comment section below, and Clive will respond to all of them. I'm joking.
I will. Bring it my way. We'll see how we go.
Leave your thoughts down below. Drop a like, of course, as well. And this is, of course, released in the morning tomorrow because I'll be at Mikel Arteta's press conference. So I couldn't do the show, and I have to get around the M25 in time to get to London Colney for a very early presser. So I hope that you've appreciated the effort that's gone into to provide this for you. So please do drop a like and subscribe on that lovely stuff. And I'll be back, of course, for normal times on Wednesday at 8 as well. Have a fantastic day, people. Stay safe, stay well. And as always, up the Arsenal.